2.2, organizing qualitative data. Today's goal is to organize qualitative data using frequency distributions, pie charts, and bar charts. So 3 different ways to represent qualitative data. First are frequency distributions. So frequency is just the number of times a particular distinct value occurs, and a frequency distribution of qualitative data is a listing of the distinct values and their frequencies. So to construct a frequency distribution of qualitative data, step 1, list the distinct values in the first column of a table. Second, for each observation, place a tally mark in the second column of the table. Step 3, count the tallies for each distinct value and record the total or totals in the third column. So for example, political party affiliations. Professor Weiss asked his introductory statistics students to state their political party affiliations as Democratic, Republican, or other. The responses of the 40 students in the class are given in the table 2.1. Determine the frequency distribution of these data. So, like it says in our steps here, we're going to list the distinct values in the first column of a table. So we need to create a little table. So on the left-hand column, our distinct values for party would be Democratic, Republican, and other. Next, we would go through and we would count up each one of the Democrats listed and find out how many there are. And when we count, we would find there are, so here's one, Democrat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13. So the tally and the totals, or the frequency. And then we would go through and tally up the number of Republicans. So we have 6. And then 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then other. Go back through and tally up other. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that is a frequency distribution. Next, we'll talk about a relative frequency distribution. So with relative frequency, it's the ratio of the frequency to the total number of observations. For example, if we use the political survey results, we would just create ratios. So we'll make a new chart here. So we have our parties here again. So we have our Democrat, Republican, and other. And then the relative frequency. So our relative frequency should actually always add up to 1. So we'll make a ratio. The total here, it says there were 40 students, and we see that when we add these up, we get 40. So we would do 13 to find the relative frequency for Democrats. We would do 13 divided by 40, which is 0.325. So just divide that out and we get a decimal answer. For Republican, we would divide our 18 by 40 and we would get 0.450. And with our other, dividing 9 by 40, 0.225. And then again, all of these values here add up to 1. Or 100%. Now to graphically display qualitative data, it's nice to be able to see our data in pies and charts. It's worth, a picture's worth 1,000 words, they say. So for pie charts, a disk is divided into wedge-shaped pieces proportional to the relative frequencies of the qualitative data. To the relative frequencies. Relative frequencies that we just learned on the other side. So constructing a pie chart, and we'll do some examples in class, you obtain a relative frequency distribution of the data, just like we did in part 2. Divide a disk into wedge-shaped pieces, as you can see here, proportional to the relative frequencies. So you can see the 22.5% is smaller, a smaller wedge than the 32.5% for the Democratic. And then label the slices so you can actually see the labels, and it helps make it specific and easy to read. Bar charts. So bar charts display the distinct values of the qualitative data on a horizontal axis and the relative frequencies or just the frequencies or just the percents of those values on the vertical axis. The bars should be positioned so that they do not touch. So when we're talking about a bar chart, one distinction from what we'll talk about in the next lesson is that the bars do not touch. And you can see the qualitative data here, and you can see the relative frequencies listed on the vertical axis. And again, those could have been listed as frequencies or as percents. You can see the steps here. Obtain the relative frequency distribution of the data. Starts off just like a pie chart. Draw the horizontal axis that you'll place those bars, and then a vertical axis that you'll display the relative frequencies. And then for each distinct value, construct a vertical bar whose height equals the relative frequency of that value. And then label the bars. So with the distinct values, the horizontal axis with the name of the variable, which would be party, would be that name of that variable. And then the vertical axis with the word relative frequency there. So we know what we're looking at.